Welcome. This is the School District of Prescott Board of Education regular meeting. I'll call this meeting to order subject to 1983 Wisconsin statutes. Our first item is to adopt the agenda. Dr. Spacuzza, are there any changes?
There are no changes from administration.
All right. We'll need a motion to adopt.
I move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Vicki, would you care to lead us? Get out of there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Let's see here. So next item is the recognition of visitors, and we're gonna so we changed the policy like, I don't know, 3-4 months ago, and I've been meaning to do this. So for the public comment section, I'll probably try to read something just to kind of set the stage for public comment. And this is kind of the first meeting we're moving it, so it's gonna be a little rough, but so if this item, recognition of visitors, the Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on district matters. To permit fair and orderly public expression, please adhere to the following rules as stated in our public comment policy. During public comment, attendees shall approach the podium one at a time and state their name and municipality of residence and topic they intend to address. Allotted time shall be a maximum of 3 minutes per individual speaker, or 6 minutes if that individual is representing a group. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. And public comment section of the meeting will be limited to no more than 30 minutes unless board action is taken. And for the full policy, please refer to policy 167.3 for a full description of our public comment policy. So thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that would care to be recognized?
Good evening. My name is Melissa Miller. I'm the early childhood teacher for the Prescott School District, and I'm here to read a statement that our group has put together and other people are here in support of. So, several of us are here tonight as proud staff members of the school district. Together, we will have more than a century of service to the Prescott schools. Because of our time here, we are well aware we no longer have negotiation or bargaining rights. However, we are asking for collaborative teamwork and representation between the school board, the staff, and our administrators in regard to the district handbook. This year's handbook was made accessible to us on Wednesday, September 13th, followed by changes on the 14th and the 15th, and we feel it did not leave us or our staff ample amount of time to go over this 85-page document and address with our administrators all of our questions. We're busy teaching, we're in the classroom, we're moving and grooving. There is no time, especially under a week's time. Therefore, we're here this evening to ask the school board and that the employee handbook for the 2023-24 school year not be approved until there is an opportunity for further review and discussion, as we have some areas of concern. Some of our concerns include inconsistencies, transferred information from the previous handbook to the 2023 edition. In addition to these inconsistencies, they were called unsubstantial changes, where we feel that they are significant to us. We also noticed that all the changes were not highlighted, nor were we notified of any of the changes since the September 15th. Page 10 of the handbook states that the information in this handbook is subject to change, and I understand that changes in the district policy may supersede, modify, or eliminate the information summarized in this handbook, as the district provides updated policy information, and I accept this responsibility for reading and abiding by the changes. We all are aware of that. In summary, how do we abide by those changes in the handbook if we don't know what those changes are or when they occur? Because we're told they could be changed at any time and modified when needed. Again, we are just respectfully asking for the team collaboration moving forward with the staff handbook, and we hope that you table the vote on our staff handbook until our concerns have been addressed.
Thanks, Melissa. Would anybody else care to be recognized? And thank you for coming, everyone. Appreciate it. This is an item on the agenda. Let me get back to it. All right, we're going to move on. If nobody else wants to be recognized here, we'll move on. Thank you. Next item is good news around the district.
Yes, and there's a lot of good news in the district. Beginning of the school year is often exciting and high-paced, but I wanted to recognize that our student representative is here for the first time. Mackenzie Hagelin, welcome. And you have big shoes to fill, but I know that Shay, you and Ryan are friends, so as you kind of continue the legacy, we're going to allow you to start with any good news from the high school and the student council that you wanted to share.
Yeah, the council this year is really trying to plan homecoming in a way that everyone can enjoy it, and I don't know, just one to remember, I suppose. I feel like for the past couple of years since COVID, it's kind of been a little slow. So this year, we're really hoping to get the parade back going again, and we're planning on doing that. While students may be walking in the parade and whatnot, we're trying to get it to go around the back-to-school bash. It's happening the same night as homecoming, so that we can get the community involved and the kids involved. Community involvement has been a really prominent goal for student council this year, especially for the officers, and so that's one way that we're trying to get the community involved. And then we're also still holding the Powder Puff game, and we're holding a boys volleyball game too. We're calling it the Rowdy Rough, which is something fun. And then homecoming crowning at the football game. Yeah, homecoming planning is just going good.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Michael Kozmowski.
All right, I'm going to start with actually the Malone Elementary good news that I got from Principal Dusick today, who's not in attendance. The Malone Playground is officially complete. She wants to thank Afton Apple for their donations and continued support of the Malone Playground project over the last several years. Principal Dusick wants to report that the fall benchmark assessments are completed, and teachers will be using part of the Monday Professional Development Day to create enrichment and intervention groups to be used during our cardinal time to address gaps in learning and to extend our students. And finally, the construction projects are complete at the elementary school. The new bathrooms look amazing. She would like to shout out to the custodial staff for working to get the school ready and safe for students under the time crunch at the end of August. From the intermediate school, we are also settling into our new space. Happy to report we have not misplaced any students in the 9 different stairwells that are in the building. I want to thank the City of Prescott for their partnership in addressing issues at Public Square Park, including the partnership on the fence for security that you may have noticed if you've driven by, also promptly addressing some graffiti and other safety issues we had at the playground. The Malone Parent Committee Back to School Bash was rescheduled. It will be next Friday to align with the homecoming football game. We invite all families to come and enjoy some festivities prior to kickoff. At this time, I'm going to actually have Stacy Helders. She is the intermediate school reading interventionist and academic coach. Talk about one book, one school.
Hello. So last year we had this idea, because we are building up grades 4 and 5. There's kind of a unit out there about one book, one school. You can take it off the internet. We followed it, we kind of looked at it, we decided it would be a good fit for us, and our goal for this is to show that we are all readers. So we want to model for all students that we are readers and they should be readers. This is going to be communication between home and school, and we're going to choose a book. We've already chosen the book, but I'm not going to say the name of it. It has a good-hearted message, and it's appropriate for grades 4 and 5. Student council, which I'm a part of, I'm the leader at the intermediate school, purchase the books. We have one book for every student. So all of these kids will read the book. They might listen to it, because we're going to have teachers read the chapters if they get behind, and they're going to be able to keep the book. We also just found out a little bit ago that MPC gave us the money so that the author of the book could come visit us. And so that's going to be one of our culminating events. So that's coming up October, November, and December for us.
Thank you. Mr. Igo.
Good evening, members of the board. Kyle Igo, Prescott Middle School. First and foremost, I do want to give a shout out to our custodial staff, our teachers, some of our intermediate school teachers for helping us have a successful move into our new building. The week before in-service and even in-service week was extremely hectic. That time being extremely hectic for our staff made the first week or two of school a little bit hectic. We're finally starting to settle in. Last week we did all of our first academic screening of the year, so we're right back on track and on pace for everywhere where we need to be. And we've settled in really nice. The building is really great. Chatting with students, both the cafeteria, the hallways, the classrooms, the students love them. Just the space that we have, the area to roam, to be able to go outside and enjoy the green space that we now have. Not to have to run to football practice and then run back after football practice those are just some of the things that we've noticed in the first 3 weeks. Teachers also are really enjoying it. The calmness of the building, not being crammed into the middle school. So we are excited to start the year at our new middle school. So again, thank you for that, and thank you to the staff, especially the custodial staff and the teachers who put in all the time in the last 2 weeks of August to make the move happen.
Mr. Figge from Prescott High School.
Good evening. You see some pictures up on the screen for people at home. I think they can see it too. Going back to the beginning of the year, even though it feels like months ago, our Cardinal Olympics, where we partnered with the intermediate school, was kind of really fantastic for, I think, our kids who came and for the 4th and 5th graders. I do want to give a shout out to our National Honor Society students and our Student Council students for helping us lead that and coming in, volunteering their time, and really leading a lot for these younger students. Some of the other pictures you see coming up, I think coming back around our Prescott days, so right away we had a quick turnaround, and a number of our activity groups helped bring a lot of culture and spirit to that, and they were led by the Prescott High School Band, which is right there. I couldn't have planned that better myself, led by Mr. Canfield, and so they sounded great as they came through, and that's a really tight turnaround for kids to come back from the summer and be ready to play extremely good music for a crowd. So just a kudos to all those kids. And then Mackenzie stole my thunder by talking about homecoming, but I'm glad she did. I do want to give another shout out to our student council officers, our leadership team. They've been really instrumental in talking about engaging all of our community this year, but especially focusing on those younger kids and bringing kind of that positive culture to all Prescott schools, not just the high school. And so they're diligently planning homecoming for next week. They've got a lot of really great activities that I think we'll start to see promoted out tomorrow. It should be really fun, culminating in the football game on Friday. So, thank you.
Andrew Caudill, Activities Director.
So our athletic season is off to a great start. Please report that our participation in grades 6 through 12 is up 6% from last year. Our girls golf teams continue to be number 1. They'll start their postseason next week. Chad Saleh, you can see in the slides, was recognized as the NFHS State Coach of the Year in Wisconsin. Our football program was state ranked for the first time in many years, and they'll continue their season at Amory this week and home next week. Girls volleyball is also having a very strong year. They're on the cusp of being state ranked for the first time in many years. They'll be at SEC tomorrow. They're back home on Tuesday. Cross country has a number of runners that are positioned well for a run to state. Cross country has also been in the news a lot recently with our course being used as the home for UW River Falls. They held their first event here. We'll also be home with the WIAC and the Middle Board Championships this year. And also, finally, we'd like to publicize that our theater department will be adding a new opportunity called One Act this year, where students will have the opportunity to compete and have a chance to go to and participate at state starting this year. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you. If Mr. Figge could stand. just wanted to acknowledge that the Wisconsin Music Association, Educators Association, has nominated him in their 32 years celebrating of honoring school leaders who make a difference. He was nominated by Ms. Camerath, Ryan Ingeldinger, who was the student cast member that was also a student rep here, Thomas Speltz, and Mr. Canfield. Congratulations to you, and he'll be attending the conference that will be happening in October with our students and staff. So congratulations. Also wanted to just recognize, we did receive a donation from Turnkey Corrections for $2,000 to our Angel Fund for students who are unable to meet their breakfast or lunch prices. And then my biggest thanks, obviously in August, we talked about everything that had to happen for August 30th and 31st for many of the pictures that you see and that were mentioned in Good News. The patience that our staff endured, why we flipped two of our buildings. I think our media specialists, our two art teachers, Carrie Sizemore with STEM, not only have they had to move probably the most stuff, but also have moved multiple years. And this could not happen without a lot of people coming forward and going above and beyond. The opportunities that I saw as other staff members helped our art teachers who had been in their rooms for over 15 to 20 years. That was amazing things to have to see and unpack and organize, and the support that they got from their colleagues was second to none. Also, you'll see up on the screen here is that our varsity football team stepped forward along with the coaches and assisted our custodians in making sure that when we had exhausted our Bester Brothers movers, that they finalized the moves that occurred between the two schools. Again, our athletes excel on the field, they excel in the classroom, but they also do outreach and community service, and I think it's a testament to the community as well as to the programming that we provide here in Prescott Public Schools. I couldn't be prouder, and I just want to thank our staff for pitching in, and I believe we now have all of our academic software operating at the middle school, and we'll begin with a professional development day on Monday where everybody can catch their breath, recalibrate, and move forward for the year. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Rick. We'll move on. School business. The first item is the consent agenda. In consent, we have the August 16th, 2023 regular board minutes, board checks finance, non-licensed personnel retirement, resignation, employment, change of non-licensed staff, interdistrict agreement for DHH services under special education, consider janitorial agreement to assist with site cleaning, consider dance team overnight trip to Little Chute in December, and finally accept Altria settlement offer dual class action receipt of $7,627. Anything in the consent that any board members want to pull out? If not, I will adopt the consent agenda. Are there any objections? All right, the consent agenda is adopted. Rick, did you want to call out anything here with, I saw Courtney's name highlighted here, so do you want to address that now, or?
Sure, that would be very nice. Behind the desk, Courtney, if you want to just stand. Courtney Johnson has joined the district now that you've accepted the consent agenda as the executive assistant. Behind her, or to her right, you will see that Maria Damiani is here and has been supporting her on making sure that this meeting went off without a hitch, and then also will be tag teaming on the 27th for our annual meeting. So Maria, thank you again, and welcome to Courtney.
Yeah, welcome aboard, Courtney, and Maria, I still can't believe you're here, so thank you. Thank you for keeping the ship running down the middle of the river here, so. All right, we'll move on. Next item is Consider retirement, resignation, and new hires of licensed staff. There's no retirements, but we have some resignations.
Yes, we did receive a resignation mid-August from Becky Fortney. She was a second grade teacher. She accepted a position as a principal in another district.
All right, board, any comments or questions? Otherwise, we can take a motion.
I move to approve all resignations. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries. And new hires?
Yes, we have 2 new hires. We have 2 second grade teachers, Alexis Mueller and Maya Fuller.
Any questions here? Otherwise, we can take a motion again.
I move to approve all new hires.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item C. Consider final partnership with Northwest Journey to lease space within Prescott Public Schools.
Yes, so for the last couple board meetings, we've presented to you ongoing conversations we've had since June to bring in Northwest Journey. We are still attempting to finalize the the financial piece of the lease, but we have the memorandum of agreement that has been put forward. I believe it's still a great fit for the Prescott Public Schools and the surrounding districts to provide services that students need. It provides services that we know that occur within the Prescott Public Schools. It will be its own independent entity, and we will be finalizing the lease if approved at the board meeting tonight.
All right. Vicki, any questions or comments here?
I don't have any.
Tanya?
No questions. I'm really looking forward to that partnership, though. I think it'll be good for our community, students, teachers, families, so.
Helen?
Nope, I was part of the work session. I think it's needed, and I think we have the space and students that would really benefit from, so I'm positive
All right.
that.
Kenzie, anything? No. Rick, you're working, so you guys are working through the contract?
Yes. Basically, we've agreed in concept with regards to the factors that would be the base, finalizing some of the phones and computer systems. Initially, they were going to bring in their own, but that might create some challenges for our tech. So we're working on that, and then just how we would cover that cost.
Okay, and will we approve, is this to approve the partnership, or do we have to come back and approve a contract, or?
I was going to say if it fell within the parameters that you had given me, that we would, this would just make it a go.
All right, that's kind of what I was hoping. All right, anything else?
No.
All right, we'll take a motion.
I move to approve the final partnership with Northwest Journey to lease space within Prescott Public School at 125 Elm Street, North 2nd, oh, that's not me.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Move on to item D, approve updated employee handbook and HR updates for the 23-24 school year.
Let me just change. Okay. This is kind of in a similar vein with regards to how we've done Neola policies. The board had asked for, we did not have a formal update to the handbook last year. A lot of that had to do with personnel changes in the district office and HR transformations. Historically, we did have teamworks that worked with our teachers in partnership of revising the handbook in 2018. That took over a process where we had staff participation and refined many big clauses, and then that went out to all staff, and then there were presentations made in the Performing Arts Center. In 2018, we did another revision more on trying to, the theme of that revision was specific to not right to be understood, but right so that you can't be misunderstood. That took 18 months. Again, because of staffing, partnered with a team of teachers that represented each of the locations and subject areas, and we were able to pull that one together. This one was kind of seen as an incremental change. It was presented in August to the school board. Many things that were just mentioned are accurate. One of the things that we did find is new staff learning software and how that operates. So what you do have is that the board received a draft with all of the changes, excuse me, and those changes required us to either, we do with Neola policies, show the strikeouts, put in color, and make sure that the regular text was there. Unfortunately, as they were working with the software, what was showing up on the screen and then being converted into a PDF would not always represent the way it should have. The way that that came forward was that the custodians who last month we shared that there were 3 specific changes that went outside of what we would say were kind of minor tweaks. Currently, our licensed staff have personal days and sick days. For some reason beyond my understanding, but predated me, is that anytime a staff member took a personal day, there also was a simultaneous deduct on sick. At the proposal in August, we did mention to the board that it was our recommendation that we do away with that practice, separate those buckets, and not change the allocations, but make them unique. We did not hear any concern, and so we have moved forward with keeping that in the system. Excuse me. In addition, our custodians, and in working with Mike Koika, you understand we've been understaffed. Our custodians do a lot of work with regards to all activities. When we are in the Performing Arts Center, volleyball, basketball, they are the ones that are setting up for the tables, making sure that the bleachers are pulled, sound systems and things like that. They're the ones that are also helping set up this room. So it goes beyond just cleaning and emptying of trash, but it's a lot of maintenance and also setup. Because of that, we also have used our facilities 24/7 and also on Saturdays and Sundays. We made a suggestion to the board that on Saturdays and Sundays that our custodians would be paid time and a half when they come in on Saturday and Sunday. That has been built into our reimbursement structure that was presented to you by Mr. Figge last month when we talked about our fee structures. In addition, for our aides, one of the things that we ran into is that the inclement weather language, because we have moved to distance learning, excuse me, as I recover from my illness, still don't have my voice. But one of the things that we have put in place is that they would have 2 additional days that they could turn in June if they had banked them in sick. So it would be set up with regards to, it's still budget neutral. It helps us to make sure that staff that are able to be here would stay here. And then if we have distance learning days, they would be able to be reimbursed for lost pay. In this, over the last 2 years, we've worked with teaching and learning also to have a program for our aides where they can do online learning, become certified in certain areas. And so we are making those also available to our aides anytime there are lost work hours due to inclement weather. We also, on our professional development days, such as this upcoming Monday, our principals are also able to call them in, or our admin teams can call them in to work at grade level teams if there's a need. So we've been looking at ways to make sure that hourly workers have an opportunity to sustain their pay for when students are not present, and they're still included in the educational process for our students. Finally, and one of the things that we received the biggest amount of feedback, so I know that it has been challenging to make sure that the information was available. The folder that was created for the staff was sent out to them after the board meeting. Obviously, not all staff are coming back at the same time. There was another draft that was given on September 15th, and I'll pull that up for you. And I want to bring you to page 57 on a suggestion that we've been working on based on feedback. But this is, as soon as I get the cast to work. So some questions that people have had as we try to show, as you can imagine, it doesn't look pretty when you try to show what the original text was and what's been cut out. The reason for the strikeouts in this case was one of the questions pertains to that we have really tied everything to school board policies. As you have been working with Neola, school board policies come forward and change frequently based on law or updates. And so what we're recommending here is to not to be redundant and just to put the link directly to the policy rather than have a policy that gets outdated and then have to change it in 2 locations. As we went through, the employee acknowledgement page is something that is put online, and Skyward is something where we have put the handbook for all staff so that they can access this as new staff come onto the district, but also that they can access it at any time of the year. There are 3 sections. One is for licensed staff, then support staff, and then also for our transportation group. On page 57, one of the things, this is one of the things that we also learned, is that as you can see in this document, as edits were being made, the new scale that everybody was paid on the 15th was added. The previous scale is X'd out, so you can see where the changes are. Unfortunately, as HR was pushing this to PDFs, unknowns to them until it was brought to their attention, those tables weren't showing up. So every occurrence where people brought forward to us, it was brought forward to us that the middle school cross-country had been left off. That has been added in, and that is what you have been having access to since August and now at this meeting. Anything in color was something that has been changed based on board action with regards to the extracurricular activities, from driver's ed wages per hour to the new theater director that's paid 3 times a year. The one that is, I think, relevant and that I would like to point out is that on sick day payouts, the intent has always been that sick day payouts were specific for individuals who are retiring. Individuals who are retiring, it was broken out into 3 steps. Our staff are allowed to accumulate up to 90 sick days. The reason for the 90 is specific to bridge staff from short-term disability to long-term disability. Once they're on long-term disability, which is provided an option for them as an employee of Prescott, then there's no longer any reason for sick time. Once they've reached 90, that's Part B, at the end of every school year, payroll runs a report. Anybody that has 91 to 112, they are paid off that 1 or 12 days at $18 a day, and that is provided to them in their June payroll. C was confusing. And this was caught as HR was reviewing the handbook. It was brought to the attention when some people were retiring and some people recently left the district after 15 years. The first sentence read, unused sick leave upon voluntary leave. And then it went to, at the end, it said they will receive $75 per day upon voluntary retirement from the district. That led to confusion when people said, am I leaving and I've worked for the district for 15 years, or is it only available to us if we retire? This was a historical document. This has always been paid in the history that I've been here and working with Deb. It was always intended specifically for retirement. So the edit here is to replace the word leave in the first sentence. It's there, it's highlighted, it's struck through, and we added retirement, so the first and last sentence were accurate. Second, we did have teachers who have accumulated 15 years or more of continuous service will receive 75 days, no change, up to 90 days. This ran into that this process was supposed to be sequential, and so if you've done A and you've done B, you really couldn't have more than 90 days, but there were sometimes people at retirement wanting to collapse the two. That wasn't the intent, and if the board would like to change that, we can work on that as we work on the budget that's coming up next. Initially, the first draft, the PDF that went out to staff, did have an X at the age of 60. It struck that, but it then was re-added above in purple. In reviewing with that and also talking to staff that brought it to our attention, it was our suggestion from HR and administration that the intent, again, was not to change anything substantively. We would like to propose that it would just be changed to that anybody that voluntarily retires with 15 years of service, regardless of their age, basically would receive the $75 per day. Those were and are really the only things that were mentioned in August that are still in the handbook, as well as information that has morphed since August to now with regards to changes that are not technical or words.
All right, thanks, Rick. Sorry, Tanya, do you want to start us here?
Yep. Rick, that sounded very difficult for you, so I appreciate it.
Most I've talked in a couple days.
First, I just wanted to ask, is there a deadline for when this is approved? Is there a reason why something, I understand that this is how our staff is operating right now, and so we would be still using the 22-23 school year handbook. Is there any other?
Well, actually, the last handbook that was approved was 2021.
Okay.
And so we do have people that have come and gone. Sure. And so that's where and why these edits have been sitting on the table for 2 years. One of the things that I would say is there isn't a specific deadline, but for example, the one where we want to completely segregate personal days and vacation days.
Okay.
We already have staff taking personal days. Right now, we are operating under the good faith that we didn't hear any pushback in August. So we are kind of operating. If we say that's not how it's going to be, we would have to go back.
For vacation and personal. And,
yeah.
And as a reminder, the vacation and personal was if you took off a personal, before it was like you had to take 2 days off essentially. You took off a vacation day as well.
You lost a day in each bucket.
In each, right. Okay.
And over time, to me, again,
yeah.
It didn't make sense. I thought it was confusing. It was really hard for payroll, and it became more and more difficult every time we had new staff to try to explain it. I think it's a wise and support it 100%. My recommendation, to be honest, is that we met with different groups, the principals. We're asking them to collect information. Mm-hmm. My recommendation is if there's any areas you would like us to bring back for, like we do anytime we approve a Neola policy, to have that refined, just to give us opportunities. As our colleagues has shared at the beginning of this manual, Weld Riley and WASB tells you that These are things that are living, breathing documents. We already know that there's a section in food service that has to be updated, and we have that on the docket for October because we didn't have time to wrap our heads around how that would play out.
So my understanding is we can approve like a section. So for example, the vacation and personal is impacting our staff now. We could say, let's move forward with that so our staff don't get penalized for 2 days versus 1, and then other things. Okay, so that was my first question. Yeah, I guess one of my overall thoughts was I would like to see, even though we don't have negotiations, we're not required to have negotiations or anything like that, and I'm not necessarily saying we should have negotiations, but I think that it would be really helpful just to have similar practices to what we've had in the past, where even if this is something we're kind of pushing out, and I know that some of it came out at a board meeting, but we have opportunities with our HR staff, maybe finance, to work with our staff and just have some kind of listening sessions, if you will, some opportunities for staff to kind of ask questions, give feedback before it gets here. And what I'm hearing is that some of these changes are, we just went out within the last week, basically, for everybody to see, or even some of the tables weren't out there. And I would say, like, for me, like this C right here, this is different than the one I have even. And so for me, I am really happy to see that part of it is struck out there because mine doesn't have that struck out. So for me, it's even, like, I feel like I'm seeing this for the first time right here too. So I think those are things that could get caught when we have a process where we are collaborating with our teachers, even if it's just for asking questions and getting some feedback before it comes to this. So that would be my preference moving forward. And then one thing I had a question on, and it was pointed out to me, I noticed it myself, but I had questions on things like that 60 years of age was not in the old handbook at all. Like 60 was not in there at all. So I was a little bit concerned, and like it's not highlighted on mine. So for me, when I was looking at this, I was like, I didn't think it looked like that big of a change because it wasn't highlighted. It looked like it had already been there. So I guess for me, I'm having a hard time approving the whole thing, knowing that I think some of those pieces are still, they're brand new to me at this moment, even.
Well, where that came from, just to be clear, is based on the 2018 school board decision to move healthcare to age 60. And so those updates, it was more on a find and replace anything to put it in there. Although it doesn't really, it's not essential to the meaning of this for this sick leave payout for retirement. It was necessary at the time when the board made that decision about healthcare.
Yeah, and I just looked up last year's handbook, and it wasn't in there. And to me, like, it maybe is. Like, if somebody retires at 58, I mean, maybe it is relevant then, and is more than just kind of a change, you know what I mean? So I guess, so that's one of my thoughts there. And then it was brought up by our staff, which I'm super thankful everyone's here. It's been like a long time since we've had a full house, so it's awesome. But one of my other things I just wanted to make sure that I understand too, but whenever there is a change within our handbook, that always comes to a board level in some way or another, whether it's because of a policy thing that changed, which now gets reflected on there, or if there's some other change that happens. It's my understanding, right, that we always see that first, so that gives everybody an opportunity to hear and know it was on the agenda, know to look at it, stuff like that. Is that still our practice? Mm-hmm. It won't change without a meeting first.
Correct. Yeah, okay. It has to, it's board approved handbooks, yeah.
Yep. Okay. So those were my questions and thoughts. Just I'd like to hear from everybody else.
Sure. Vicki?
I have some of the same concerns as Tanya, and the collaboration we've been working on. That's something I came into when I started on the board. The collaboration was happening with the teacher pay scale, so that was something that was everybody was working on together and everybody felt a part in it. And with past handbooks and the same thing having been done, collaboration with staff and giving them a chance for input, that sort of stuff. I think we need to make that a permanent practice. And then this school year in particular, the run-up to school there was so much going on. Teachers were moving stuff in, the whole back to school, everything kind of got shifted for them when they came back that first week because there was moving in and had to change schedules on how we were going to do stuff, to work with the schools, what rooms they could get into, what parking lots they were able to use, all of that. So if there's not the pressing issue other than possibly the vacation and the personal days, which I don't understand, I think we need to give this a little more time to look over, because my concern was too, I was trying to compare the old manual with the new manual, and when you've got two things open on one little screen, it's hard to continue to go back and forth. So I think if we can have the sit down with the few staff and their principals, and then everybody come together and just have a chance to catch editorial mix-ups like that, because that's partly my concern, is if that accidentally slipped in. This is somewhere with my previous job that I would have looked at first. Anything involving my pay, that's where I would have gone to make sure that things didn't change, benefits didn't change. Then I would look at all the work rules and all of that sort of stuff. So that's a lot to look at. So some staff only having a week and really focusing in on this, I see why they caught this. There may be other things that could possibly be hanging out there that maybe everybody or nobody is aware of. I don't know. So I think we just need to step back. If we need to do the one to make sure vacation and personal days are straightened out, but I'm of the same mindset as Tanya. We need to thoroughly look through this, I think. Done.
Yeah, I agree. I think when we talk about collaboration and when we talk about a handbook in general, the people that are affected by this handbook should be part of it at every building level, and at every level, every job level. You should have teachers, you should have custodians, you should have admin on a part of it. I think that's important to hear, and because it affects them, right? I also, sorry, I lost my train of thought, but I also, I wonder about, we talked about the vacation versus the, help me here.
Personal
days. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that could be easily, HR could go back and switch something and click something later, correct?
It's not that easy. I wish it was that easy. But
explain, because I know that like sometimes like.
It's not, it's just the transactions that you're doing within finance, payroll. I guess, honestly, I would argue that if it's a benefit to our staff, unless you're hesitant not to give them segregated buckets, then I could see holding. But I would say it would be in our best interest to start the year keeping them segregated and not have to try to untangle that later out of payroll. Because people are already taking vacation, taking sick days, and also taking personal days. And it's a lot of extra work for payroll, finance, and HR to do all those exchanges. It would be like overpaying into your 403B and trying to pull those out at the tax time. It's not easy.
I'm going to take your word on that, but I think, well then, I mean, for me, if that needs to get pulled out and voted on, that gets pulled out and voted on. I don't know how that would work, but I'm going, as a board, I'm going to support what several teachers just stood up and said, and I think we need to review the handbook with them, the complete handbook with them, and show them that we're listening. I mean, I really do.
I'm not going to say anything different here, but I want to just emphasize, Rick, so there's pieces of the handbook that you're worried about that if we don't get approved, we're going to have procedural problems if we end up changing them. Is the big one?
I would ask that, you know, if you could just say we would hold full approval of the handbook until October, allowing 2 segments that have been presented to you since August, and that would be to allow the segregation of personal days and sick days for staff, not to be
Which is a good thing.
commingled.
I mean, so that's.
And then for our custodians who are
Custodian
called
pay,
in to
right.
work on Saturday and Sunday
Yep.
to be paid time and a half.
Another benefit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a.
Yep.
So then, just to kind of like go through this really quick, because I think we're approving 2 very specific things, or that might be the conversation here, right? The personal leave, I'm just reading it, it'll say teachers will be allocated 3 personal days annually. Use of personal days must be pre-approved by the building principal supervisor. So we're just striking out the one that says the first personal day will be deducted from the employee's sick bank, which to me is like you're taking 2 days off for that one. So that makes sense to me. And then there's other things that go with that section though, personal leave blackout days. So I'm familiar with this too with my job, but there are certain days that we're asking people not to take personal days, like conferences, outside of like emergency situations. That hasn't changed. And then there's a maximum of 2 carryover days from one year to the next, and an accumulation, a max of 5. That has not changed either. There's a statement that says if returning the next academic year, which I think is kind of obvious, right? Because if you're not with us. And then teachers just need to notify human resources no later than 4 p.m. on a Friday, end of June.
What page are you on?
On page 57, sorry.
Okay.
It's right below this C thing. Failure to each year to their choice for the use of any unused personal days, yep. So to have it carried over, basically. Is that correct, what that statement means? Says teachers must notify human resources by no later than 4 p.m. on the first Friday of June each year on their choice for the use of unused personal days.
Yep, so that's, there's a board approved practice that they can use, they can carry over or exchange a personal day for a
Yep.
payout of $100.
Yep, okay. And it'll
But has
be
that
rolled
changed?
over.
Because I don't
It
see
hasn't
any-
changed.
That hasn't
No.
changed, no.
It'll automatically be rolled over unless people say, hey, I want the payout instead. Okay, so that's that whole personal leave section. So for me, I feel really comfortable with that. I don't know how we never noticed before that teachers had to take 2 days off basically for the first personal day. So I feel really good at that one. The other one was the custodial pay, which I thought was a little bit more towards, it was up, but I don't remember.
Rick, do you know what page that is? The one you want to?
It's actually on the agenda, maybe.
Yeah.
I think you put that whole statement on the agenda too.
Yeah.
The other one is custodians requested,
page.
I'm looking actually on the agenda because I don't have the page. But it says that for custodians that have overtime beyond an 8-hour day, right, that we would pay overtime for
That is-
over 40 hours, is it that?
So that one is
Support staff.
legally,
Yep,
right?
okay.
We have to do that.
And then-
So
okay.
you want to go to page 66,
Perfect.
and it's letter F. And so what we're saying, custodians called in to work on a holiday weekend, and it's actually supposed to say Saturday or Sunday, their rate of pay will be 1.5 times their normal rate,
Perfect.
okay? This was to ensure that we had staff that would be, or custodians that would come in on those, because it's beyond their 40-hour week.
Yep.
Now, what was happening is that sometimes when there is Labor Day, and then, or Thanksgiving, or Christmas, PCR and things like that are running tournaments, our custodians are coming in, and they haven't worked a 40-hour week. And so, but they still had to come in on a
Yeah.
weekend. So what we wanted to do is recognize it's really hard to get our custodians in. So we wanted to be really clear that anytime they come in on a weekend, they get time and a half. They did send you a proposal that I gave to all of you. When they work more than 40 hours a week, we are legally obligated to pay them overtime, just like we pay food service, and our admin assistants. They did make a proposal for the board to consider that if they work over an 8-hour day, because of either someone is absent or that they would also be paid overtime. At this time, based on what's coming up with our budget, that was more of a change that I wasn't sure we were able to completely tell you what the impact would be, and it would impact other hourly employees too, who work beyond 8 hours in a day, but not over 40 hours within a week. So 40 hours within a week is a federal mandate, and we honor that. We wanted to make sure we took care of. The over 8 hours within a day was something that was a little bit more, that obviously they would like to be considered, but I think we have to consider it in the nature of the whole budget.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right. So
So how do you,
we want to make a motion to approve the 2 sections that we talked about, Rick, and then
Yep.
moving forward. Thanks to everybody for coming. I mean, I got a lot of feedback from several people, and, so it's just great to hear that, because when we're looking at the handbook in August, to me it's like reading, I don't know, it's like watching grass grow. It's hard to decipher it all. There's a lot there. So having feedback from the people that are impacted is, I think, important, which speaks to, I think, just from a process perspective, making sure that we're getting feedback as edits are being made. August is an awfully tough time because people are still in summer mode. A lot of people are not even in town towards the end of August there. So oftentimes the first look that people get at this is in September. So I think, I think moving forward, we got to probably clean that up and just figure out a better way to get this disseminated out so people have ample time to see it, get feedback from stakeholders in each of the licensed staff, support, and transportation. Is there any other groups? Those are the main 3, right, Rick? Licensed staff,
Non-licensed and yep.
And support staff, right?
Yep.
So, and I know we're busy. This was a wild summer, but maybe just something to think about as we kind of move forward here. So, how do we want to do this? Because we want to make a motion.
I think we have something.
Yep. Okay.
But you guys can just tell me if I'm doing it all wrong. I move to approve the personal leave section and the hours of work, section F of the 23-24 school handbook, and table the rest of the handbook discussion until the October board meeting.
How does that sound, Maria?
What? Repeat? Yeah.
Email it?
Yeah.
Rick,
Yeah.
does that work for you?
Works for me.
Nobody's booing in the audience?
well, I don't think they are. I don't think they're happy. So I think that,
Yep.
And we'll follow up on just making sure that Chantel is out at every building. We'll work through the principals to assign times that staff can be made available. And then if there's any specifics, I just made a print. We'll put a print in every cafeteria or teacher's lounge so that you are able to make any comments and bring those forward to Chantel.
And then I just want to reiterate, this is, like you had mentioned earlier, Rick, it's a living document, so it can change. Well, we'd like to get all the changes in, at the beginning of the year and not make changes throughout the whole year, but I think there's opportunity to make changes, or at least suggestions, so they can be in the handbook perhaps in the next year. Obviously, if it's a bigger change and it affects, the current fiscal year, those got to be taken into consideration and everything. But it is a living document; it can be changed.
Was there any other changes from last year's handbook to this year's handbook in those 2 sections besides the first?
There's a lot. Yeah.
In those, I mean like in the
sections that we
personal
just
leave
approved?
section?
Yeah, we haven't approved anything.
Yeah, we haven't approved anything
We
yet.
don't have a second yet.
So
Before
the
more
only,
discussion, we
the
oughta
only thing I
probably
see crossed off in here is that one line, but there are some more differences between last year's handbook and this in the personal leave sections. Okay. Well, I made a motion, so the board has to make a decision with that. You don't have to second it if you guys
Can
don't want
repeat,
to.
can you repeat
Oh, no.
what you said in the
Yeah.
personal leave section then? Because I don't,
So the personal leave section, what I'm seeing here, the only thing crossed off.
What was the motion,
or
though?
highlighted was to approve the personal leave section, which
Okay.
is like those four paragraphs. So it's just the bottom of page 57.
page 57.
Yep, that's all. So it's the teachers will be allocated the 3 personal days. It's the personal leave blackout days. Oh, so that's not highlighted on mine. So I didn't know that that was new. Okay. Okay. Well, I made a motion. You guys have to choose to vote on it or not.
Well, we didn't make a
Or
second.
second, right.
We haven't made a second on it. So the way procedurally we would, if there was another motion made, we could second that one, and this one would just die on the vine. Right? So if there's a motion, no second, it doesn't go to vote.
Right.
Right.
We clarified that a lot this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, if we made a motion, just so I'm clear, if we had made a motion because we agree on the custodial component, then that one that you made would die.
So somebody can make an
Somebody would make
alternative
another motion to do this custodial, but
Yeah.
the part of the personal leave section that was important was the split of sick time and personal time.
I guess the thing that I didn't realize, because I was reading my copy here, is that this whole thing is new and wasn't on there before, last year's. So I didn't realize that that was new also.
So if we made a motion to table this, not that I'm going to, but I'm just saying, if we made a motion that we would table this motion,
No, we don't need to do anything. It's just it's a
let
motion
it die.
that
let
dies.
die, let die.
So we can do a different motion and then second that motion. But I'm trying to get us to a point where we can at least, right, Rick, you'd like to at least get personal time and
I would
sick
do,
time.
yeah, if the concern is the added language on the blackout dates, then I would just, personal leave.
Can I ask more about the personal leave so I understand that change? So it says the use of personal days shall not be used on a parent-teacher conference day. Outside of emergencies or uncontrollable events, personal leave cannot be used before or after a non-student day or on professional development day. So like, this
like
is
the
already
Wednesday.
blacked out in my district, but like spring break, the day before spring break,
Or
is that
Wednesday,
saying we would
yeah.
not be able, teachers couldn't take a personal leave the day before spring break or the
Right.
day after?
Right.
Okay, so I guess what I would prefer, like within my district anyways, there's like a percentage of people, right? Like, because it's about like, I get it, the whole building can't be out, we have to operate. But in my district, it's per building, not per district, how many people, percentage of licensed staff out that day. And then we get like a little notice that says, this day is blacked out for personal days because we have 20% of our staff gone already. I would prefer something like that because I understand like this would be hard. This is, I think, a big change.
Yep. So I think then for purposes of a motion, that we got the custodial piece that we want to put in there, and when,
Are you able to grant the
Yeah.
piece with regards to personal days and sick days being separate?
Yeah.
And not a double deduct?
I think we just.
that's what we want to do.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make 2 motions.
So it's on page 57, it's that first paragraph, which says teachers will be allocated 3 personal days annually. It's that very first
The
paragraph.
striked out,
And it's just saying instead of when you take
Rick,
a
it's in,
personal.
yeah, personal. The piece that's struck out is the first personal day will be deducted from the employee available sick bank. That's the piece we want to approve.
Because right now, if you take a personal day, you also are losing a sick day. You're losing 2 days. That doesn't make any sense to me. So what I'm hearing Rick, you say, and I think principals probably are experiencing this, people are taking personal days already, and people already are losing 2 days, and we don't want that to go on for another
Well, we're
month.
going on good faith that they're not
Yeah.
gonna lose 2 days.
We'd have to, re-engineer it. So
Right.
all I would ask is, I think if we're all in agreement on that first paragraph, I think it is in the best interest of both the business office, morale for our staff, to just keep them segregated.
So can we just make a
We'll
motion?
come back
Yep.
next
Sick
month
leave.
with
Yep.
Item
touch
A.
I think
points
I'll
from
just-
every
I'll read
building
it.
and
Maybe I'll
group.
just read that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we're gonna try doing this in 2 separate motions.
there you go.
And Maria, tell me if I need to do this differently, but I move to approve within the personal leave section, the statement that says teachers will be allocated 3 personal days annually. Use of personal days must be approved by the building principal or supervisor.
Pre-approved.
Pre-approved by the building principal or supervisor. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm only approving that. It's 2 sentences.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Rick, is that good? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That part carries. We got one paragraph of the handbook approved.
2 sentences. I'm going to make another motion, though. I move to approve the section of the 23-24 handbook that for hours of work, section F,
For the custodial.
for the custodial
that-
weekend pay.
Can we go to the page, that
You want me
page
to read
again?
it?
What's the page?
60
Page
something.
66.
All right. And pull it up on the screen. Yeah, you got there, okay.
And actually, there's kind of a lot in there, but that's,
The modification on section F.
yep.
So can we just read that and then do a motion on it?
Sure. You want me to read it when I do the motion?
Yeah.
Okay. So that one died. I move to approve,
Right up there.
yeah, I move to approve section F in hours of work in the 23-24 employee handbook to state custodians called to work on a holiday weekend, or Sunday.
Nope, I edited for you. Or any Saturday or Sunday.
Okay. Custodians called to work on a holiday weekend, or any Saturday or Sunday, their rate of pay will be 1 1/2 times the normal rate.
I second.
Any other discussion on this?
Can we do that now?
Yeah.
Why is, okay, my question is, quick question, point of whatever. It says custodians, but it says when an employee, we cross that out. Now, does that not include, just so I'm clear, so if someone's worked 5 days or whatever and they're coming in for like holiday coach pay or whatever, is that different?
It
Just
was,
so I'm-
this change was specific for our custodians, who are typically the ones coming in on a regular basis, and we were having trouble being able to staff for events.
Okay, I'm just reading because the original wording said when an employee. So I just wanted to make sure that it's the custodian.
Yeah, it
But I
was
just wanna make
specific for
sure.
custodians. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? No. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries.
3 sentences.
2 paragraphs we got approved. All right, and then did we want to make a third motion to,
Table it. Do we need to do that?
Rick, did you want us to, because you want to try to get this done in September?
Well, I don't think you have to.
October, right?
You don't, basically, I would take the marching orders that we come back in October.
Okay.
And
But it
have,
is on the business section.
with all the specifications of, in good faith,
But we
coming
didn't
out
make any motions to do that.
with HR.
So we can, that's fine. We don't need a motion to table it.
Because you approved the only
Yep.
changes that you wanted.
Right. All right.
But the purpose of this is to like, are we gonna have to set up anything to just like a work session or anything like that? Because
I
we're
think-
gonna come back and,
So my hope is that we kind of have a tradition where, whether it sounds like building principals or HR has some listening sessions and some conversational sessions. You guys get the feedback, you rework it if needed, and then you come back to us.
Correct.
And I think like for me, a request is just, I feel like I didn't know what those changes all were because my document looks different. And so just making sure like things are highlighted or struck through, so otherwise I don't really know.
No, there was a huge learning curve
Yep,
across
that's
the
cool.
different softwares they were using. Yep.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
All right.
If we're good, we're going to move on. Are we good? Last time.
Holy, yeah.
Yeah? Okay. All right. Thank you. We're going to move on to item E. Consider, no, did I get that right? Yeah, we're on item E. Item E, consider trap team request to separate from but continue a partnership with the Prescott School District.
So this is kind of unique, but it relates to, typically the board does approve clubs and groups that are offered within our schools. Every once in a while, we'll bring something forward and the board considers it, but sometimes clubs either outgrow the district or no longer are a fit with the district, or students go in a different way and a club may no longer exist. Because we have had a partnership with and oversee the trap team, the trap team is very unique in both the scope of how many students participate, the different age groups, the asynchronous aspect of how competitions can occur, where they go out to the Hudson firing range, and they have different times in which that can occur. They're chaperoned or overseen by the coaches, and then transportation. It doesn't really fit a WIA model. It doesn't really fit some of our smaller groups that travel maybe in a van as a golf team together. So it is both an individual sport and a group sport. We've had a really good partnership. Troy Langer has reached out to me in the summer and had specified that there was some interest in moving to be independent, but wanted to know how that could occur and whether or not we could do that in good faith and in partnership. Some of the things that we talked about from just kind of financial oversight, the liability and insurance, some of our school board policies with regards to chaperoning or assistant coaches, how money is raised, how finances work, doesn't always flow and fit with trap teams. Many districts will have partnerships. We have a partnership currently with our ice fishing club, and in a similar way kind of had a different maybe just heartbeat and rhythm to how that organization and sport works. Because of that, Troy has reached out and incorporated the trap team. They are referred to as the Prescott Trap Team Incorporated. They are going to pursue being identified as a nonprofit and then able to generate donations. For us, I think some of the things that Troy and I continue to have conversations with regards to making sure that our school would and announce both at the middle school and high school level that trap is an activity or event. We know and both, I think, agree that any individual that is engaged beyond just the school day tends to perform better in the classroom, performs better, learns different skill sets and discipline, and I applaud that. There was an interest in being able to exchange information about how students are performing in the classroom, not just in trap. And I applaud the coaches and the trap team for taking that under consideration. Obviously, when you become a separate entity, there are federal laws about protection of individual privacy. So we talked a little bit about a release of information that as families sign up, they could ask for the school to provide that information. It's very customary when students switch schools or they're participating or going for scholarships to sign a release of information. We have a couple templates that we're pulling together for them. We also had where some of our coaches on Fridays for the football team team, the students will carry a signature page, and they stop by each of the 6 teachers, and they give an update on how they're doing on homework, their grades, and behavior. So that is a template that we shared. In addition, we made sure that we worked with finance to make sure that all of our monies that had either been collected or donated or fees that were collected were in good standing and that we had zeroed out. That has occurred. Sue is here in the audience somewhere back there. Hi, Sue. And so we're in good standing without any money owed to either agency. So at this point, I think that it gives, I think, a win-win. It allows, I think, our students to still participate in an activity, an event where we have solid coaches. We have a venue that they can go to. They have aspirations of maybe even joining or expanding beyond just our state. And I think those are wonderful opportunities for our students and probably can grow it better than we can do underneath the auspice of the Prescott Public Schools and some of the maybe bureaucracies that we sometimes have to follow. So it's a long way of kind of saying that it was, I think, something that Troy had brought forward to us. It is something that he mentioned to the families during their end-of-season luncheon. He's worked hard to become incorporated, and then we've kind of refined things such as the lettering, making sure that they know which vendor we use, where they can get a block P, the color that we use. There's many other vendors. That decision has always been based on each of our lead coaches and teams because all of them vary and have different standards. And then finally, there are some uniforms out there. Those uniforms are typically purchased by the athlete or family at the time. There's no need for those to be returned to the Prescott Public Schools. They can, I would hope the students would wear them proudly when he has time to redesign. I don't know if you've been able to redesign the shirts. So those were the things that we kind of talked about and have kind of put forward. I believe that Troy has done this in good faith and has been forthcoming with me. I think it's something that we'll continue to advertise. When they have the registration, we'll make sure that it's broadcast and available for families and students to sign up, and it gives them a little bit more flexibility beyond some of our school board policies and financial things that don't always coincide with their timelines and how they have to operate.
All right, Helen, do you want to ask any questions or comments?
Yeah, so I did ask some of these questions, but I think, so you talked a little bit about WIAA as the governing body, but the TRAP team has another governing body, is that correct? Or is that under, and maybe Kyle can speak to that, it's another governing body, it's not supposed to be governed by WIAA, so I'm questioning why they would have to follow all of the rules for WIAA when they should be following their own governing body. That's my first question. The next point is, I heard you say that they want to follow grades and make sure that they're students first, and I think that's amazing. But what I'm hearing is that the parents will have to sign a release of info in order for the school to provide that information. Or will they be doing a signature page? Because I want to clarify that.
Well, either way, for us to have basically a teacher disclosing that information has to be at a parent's request. We don't have the right to release that under federal law.
Sure, okay. And so then also it'd be to letter, because this is a sport. For all the kids that are on it, they feel like it's a sport because it is a collegiate sport, actually. Then when they letter, will the P, like, can they get the same P you said, and it will look the same?
Yeah, we shared the exact same vendor that we use, and there are many different vendors out there, but that's been provided.
And my last question is, and this is for everyone for clarification, this is a Prescott team, this is our team, so why wouldn't they be able to use the Flying P? I want that to be clarified,
Yeah, so,
if they chose to.
yeah, so the Flying P is been trademarked, and it is part of the Prescott Public School organization. Although we are in partnership, we're not, they're definitely a separation of 1 degree, right? And so we have to make sure that the name, image, and likeness of the TRAP Team Incorporated versus the Prescott Public Schools is separate. And so to blur that could lead one to believe that the TRAP Team is under the auspice, supervision, liability, and management of the money, which wouldn't necessarily be true. And so that separation is important and a distinction based on our discussions that we've had, both on the trademark policy, but also our own school board policy of internal versus external groups.
And then my last point of just question, so now since if we approve this and they move on, we've now created a barrier for several students that need the busing. And so that's hard for me to swallow as a board member, because now it will be on the coaches or the parents solely, and that could alleviate some members of the TRAP team that really need that as a outlet. And so I'm pretty sad about that.
Part of a partnership, though, is that we do and have made our buses available to St. Joe's for field trips, to our child care centers, to our gathering place. So there is the opportunity for the team, as it generates funds, to use us or any other bus company. We did run into that buses weren't always the most efficient based on just how the times are set up, that sometimes it was hard to find either drivers or buses because they would have to sit there for so long and then families would pick them up. So we are making available our fleet and our drivers if they want to negotiate with us or with another vendor. We'd be happy to partner with them on that.
Okay, so what I hear is that they can pay for the buses. No, it's, okay. Okay. What about the WIA versus where they're governed? Because they're truly governed underneath a different umbrella, right?
Yeah, and they weren't under WIA for us. I think we just are, we have, and if they separate, they'll be following whatever, there's multiple clubs. I don't think there's any initiative right now to move outside of their current, but that's the group that they would follow.
And I mean, just to clarify, first of all, Troy, you're bringing this to us, right? This is something, yep. And then, so this is something you're seeking out. And if I'm guessing this was in response to a board meeting we had a couple months ago, where because of some of our policy, not WIAA, not whatever, some of our policy got in the way of some of your participants being able to participate. And so this is a way, like for you, I would assume you guys really talked this through and decided this is better for us in the long run than having to align with all of our policies. Not WIAA, not what they're governing, like our policies made it so. In one case, a kid had graduated, and so our policies made it so they weren't limited. This is a different way, and I think we even talked about it at that board meeting, like here's kind of another option, think about it, and it sounds like you guys did think about it and vetted it through, so I think that's the difference of what they're following is policy, which is limiting for them. And specifically, the one I recall is a graduation policy.
Yep, I think that was, I know about that one, but I think there's,
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Tanya, while you're on it, do you have any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I mean, I trust that this was something that was vetted through with families, with coaches, that this is something they're seeking out. I have a nephew who lettered through snowboarding, a non-sanctioned sport, so I'm pretty familiar, like these are things that can happen. You can still letter. I think the conversation of, and which is awesome, like, we still want them to be student athletes, students first. We want to know about grades, how school is going. You know, students can retrieve that information from teachers, like you shared, and bring it to their coaches. So it's not as formal as like, it has to be, right? Like
But we do need a
students.
sign, right?
Like,
A release.
students can ask teachers to do stuff, and then the family can choose to do what they want with that information, right?
I think if we're exchanging information, I'll dig deeper, but my understanding is if we're giving information to another organization.
To a student.
To us, well, but if that is
That would be
part
the
of the
question.
process, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a very simple statement. It just says, when I register my child, I'm
Sure.
giving permission for the Prescott Public Schools.
It would be in
to
like their little
complete-
handbook
to
kind of
complete-
thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It's 3 sentences. They're going to have to sign a document anyway,
Yeah.
registering. I would rather be inside the law without any ambiguity than skirting it.
Perfect. And then the other thing was, busing was brought up. I would imagine we're charging for things like we would charge for anyone, which is like gas for the vehicle, the bus driver, like that thing costs money, and if it's a separate entity, like that is a separation. So we would, if it works, right, share.
Yeah, Tim
and
has
partner,
standard
but-
rates that he
okay.
uses, yep, with
Yep.
everybody.
But there would be the expectation of reimbursing like the need, like what is needed to run that bus.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess those were my only kind of just follow-up thoughts, and I mean, this is something I think I encouraged anyways a few months ago. I think it makes sense for the team, so.
Vicki?
Yeah, this should make it a little easier for the trap team. I know, Troy, you had mentioned too that there was very few trap teams in the state that were actually associated with the school. They were all clubs. Schools were moving away from having trap teams. And you had expressed your importance of the kids' education and their behavior and attendance, all of that being part of what you expected out of your trap kids. So I have no doubt that you will come up with something that works for you and for your kids. I think if this works a lot better for you to give you that ability to compete, was what you were looking for and hoping for. And unfortunately, due to our policy on how activities were written, we weren't able to grant you that at that time. So I think if this works out great for you, I love the idea that, yep, the kids are going to get the information here if they want it. The number of kids that are involved in it is still amazing. I think it's a great thing to have. So, yeah, I'm happy for you if this is the way that it's going to work better for you and not have any encumbrances for your kids in trap. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, again, I don't have anything else to add, but the numbers of the trap program have just been outstanding over the last couple of years. I hope, by making this move, it doesn't, and hopefully it positively impacts the numbers and it continues to grow, because you guys are very passionate about it. We're happy that this program has taken off, and I think this is a good move. I really do, so.
I did have one additional question, I guess, sorry. I think of Prescott Community Education. Is that a place that they could partner to? We have other outside groups that sometimes partner if they align with kind of the standards there, to be run through like in the catalog and stuff like that. Is that an option down the road or something to eat? And I'm thinking because then if you use the building space to meet and stuff, have rental fees and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure we can, and I think it's something we had shared at the time in the summers, that with Penny and Community Ed would be obviously a venue or a conduit.
Because is the fishing club run, like, does that work with PCR or Community Ed at
I would
all?
have to ask Andrew.
No,
or-
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
or
they're-
even PCR, Community Rec, considering it's a sport. So either one, I was just curious at some other options so we could partner with space and stuff. So,
All right, we'll take a motion here.
I move to approve trap team request to self-incorporate as Prescott Trap Team Incorporated with a resolution to decommission as a Prescott School District official club and activity.
I I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. All right, we're moving on to item F, declaration of surplus equipment, trap team trailer.
All right. Well, one of the things that the TRAP team, when it was part of the Prescott Public Schools, we did have a grant that provided us with a trailer that allowed ammunition and guns to be transported in a locked trailer. As we no longer have a TRAP team, we did not spend any money on it. We've worked with Sue Gertis, and one of the protocols that you've become familiar with from the current tech ed area of identifying welding machines as surplus or some of the old school desks as surplus. We are recommending at this time that the TRAP trailer that is part of the Prescott Public Schools be designated as surplus and allow us to provide a transfer of the licensure and ownership to the Prescott TRAP team.
Vicki?
Anna.
Tammy?
Would there be any cost associated to the trap team, or would we just kind of donate it basically to the trap team?
At this time, the only cost would be if there's a cost for
Like-
relicensing.
Perfect. Okay. That was my only question.
That was my question.
Mackenzie, I forgot to ask you about but do you have anything on the trap?
How about the employee handbook?
I know, it's terrible, isn't it? I'm getting used to the new student rep here. Ryan would probably fry me if I passed her, so. All right, no other questions, let's take a motion.
I move to approve declaration of surplus equipment, trap team trailer.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. We're on information and
Courtney,
discussion.
thank you very much for that
Yeah.
tongue twister. I really like how you did that.
Yeah. Fabulous.
You're off to a good start.
All right, we'll move on to the information discussion. First item is the 24 budget initial draft.
It's actually on paper.
All right, well, this is the time of year. We'll know, thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
We're going to provide you some information from the April board meeting, but it is kind of a gut check and a reality check with regards to what occurred over the summer with regards to Wisconsin educational funding. These are my words, but non-funding. We have run into, basically, the Wisconsin Association of School Business Offices published an article in WASDA in the fall. The Prescott Public Schools, based on a decision that was made for our last graduating class, when they were in kindergarten, there was a decision at that time that the way that public schools being funded in the in the state of Wisconsin would be decoupled from consumer price index. What that means is for the students that graduated last May, and then how that would have looked for us as a school district is that per student, we would be receiving $3,200 more per child. That would mean for this fiscal year, we would be receiving $4.2 million more than we are currently getting. This is unfortunate that that was allowed to happen and continues to happen, and it is something that has put a press on the programs that districts have been able to provide. It has put a press on being able to retain staff, not only in Prescott, but within just public education overall. What I am proud of is that the school board in April, understanding some projections that we had, knew that it was coming out of COVID, that three things were really important. First and foremost, the staff that have been with us through COVID and providing daily education for students over in person, over computers, during hybrid, off days, were able to do miraculous things. We beat the odds with regards to national averages with regards to performance. Over the last 2 years, and soon in October, Michael will be presenting to you the performance of our students on Wisconsin Forward and ACT, is that the performance that our staff and students have produced has been exceptional, not only in just the academic achievement, but one of the most important things educators are required, I believe, obligated to do, is to take students where they're performing and move them to the next level. We've continued to invest in our staff through professional development days, through collaboration time, and we have produced. Unfortunately, when we asked our legislature to be able to fund Prescott Public Schools in April in a letter that we drafted with the 42 other CISA districts, we were told, don't worry, we'll take care of you. We have provided funds through ESSER, and the state took 2 consecutive years off of providing any increase to public education that went to the classroom. You will hear that they increased funding in education. True, but it was flow-through to property tax reduction. Nothing that we would argue with. We applaud it, but it did not go to classrooms, and they amassed $7 billion. Some of that money is based on people's paychecks, on people's taxes, and sales tax that sits at Madison and has not come back to a district that has continued to do remarkable things in its time. When the class of 2023 were 4 years old, Wisconsin ranked 17th in the nation in per pupil spending. We were above the national average. The last graduating class, this is outdated now because it was based on 2021, had fell to 25th and spending 5% less money than the country, 5% less, and then they took 2 years off of providing increases to public education. In April, we presented to you what we knew at the time, that in 2022-2023, we had the totals, salaries and benefits, and then money that went to other things, utilities, supplies, equipment, and that totaled $17,341,000. Based on what we were projecting, we knew that the revenue that we would receive, because we no longer would have federal dollars, we estimated that it would be $16.9 million. We projected that decrease. We knew that we had performance. We knew that the interventionists that we had hired were getting great results at all levels, and we made a decision to go forward and retain all of our staff, all of our programs, because of the performance that we had been able to elicit. The challenge is that since that time, certain variables have changed. And so what we have is that the legislature did look at what they were going to provide to public schools. They came to a number of $325 per pupil increase. In April, we told you that in order for us just to stay flat, we needed $650 per pupil. That assumption, unfortunately, could be weathered based on a fund balance that we had invested in to make sure that we could weather a storm if it occurred. That storm has arrived. We can weather this short term, but as I shared with it at our kickoff, leadership can't be a committee of one. We're going to need everybody's best self, best minds, and investment in time, effort to identify how we can build a budget, not only for this year, but that we can sustain for the future. And so at this time, I'm going to have Sue Gertis, who is our Director of Finance, She has pulled together the numbers, and those were published in the Pierce County Journal. We know that next week we will be having our annual meeting of the electorate. It will be here at 6 p.m. And as you know, certain things are still always in flux, and we'll talk about that after we go through the budget that has been published in the paper and what it means currently and what it will mean for making decisions now or down the road. So Sue, welcome. Let me just get you cast. Library. So, Sue, welcome. And what you have in front of you is kind of the different areas that were presented in, or I'm sorry, displayed in the Pierce County Journal as required by statute. It starts with the general fund, and I've asked Sue to kind of focus in on two main areas, the revenue and expenditures, and it does provide you with audited results left to right. Currently in the throes of an audit, we're at step 2, and then the projected budget for this year.
So you'll notice that the revenue is down about $1.1 million from last year. And I looked into that, and 92% of that $1.1 million is loss of federal funds, mostly ESSER, but there were some other federal funds that we were able to tap into. So then when you move down to the expenditure end, we also were able to trim down our expenditures by about $400,000. About 35% of that, or $190,000, came from changes in staffing, primarily retirees being replaced by younger people. The other 65% came in the facilities area primarily, $340,000 or so. So that leaves a gap of about just under $1.3 million.
And if I can just interrupt, so one of the things, if you look at the 21-22 school year, our expenditures were $17,400,000. The change over the next 2 years is a 3% increase. That means that we increased 1.5% each year, when we know that the consumer price index, the things that we have to buy, like fuel, utilities, food, commodities, have all escalated and put a press on districts, as well as the commitment that the board made to our staff to be able to provide increases to salaries. So there has been a lot of work by the district to keep its expenditures low. Unfortunately, we have not received the reinvestment from the legislature on revenue.
So since this iteration, which was done about almost 3 weeks ago, we found another $75,000 that we feel comfortable trimming off of there, but that still leaves a $1.2 million gap. And if you look at our fund balance, we do have $1.2 million in our fund balance, but we are required to keep a level in there to carry forward paying our bills, paying our payroll, so we always make sure we can make our payments. So I guess we're going to have to look for any and all ideas that can be brought to the table where we can close this gap, or to how you want to close it. You know, do you want to close a whole gap in one fell swoop? Do you want to incrementally find savings? There's different ways to approach it, and we'll have to look towards the board for some guidance on that. Timelines, at the time this was drafted, we were looking at our open enrollment counts, and it looked like we were going to have a $660,000 expense related to the net of people, kids coming in, kids going out. Since that time, numbers as of today, that expense is only going to be $586,000. So we've saved another $75,000 there, barring any significant changes in the open enrollment. That has to be finalized on Friday. So as of Friday, we will have that official number. Then the following Friday, we get our official pupil count number. And we won't get our official property tax values that are used for the equalization aid until October 15th. But we know they're not going to close the gap of $1.2 million.
And so just wanted to kind of put up on the screen. So there's a lot of things that are in flux to meet the statutory timelines to give the board. 2 years ago, we moved where we made sure that the board saw the budget prior to the annual meeting. So this is the second year in a row that we've been able to do this. As Sue was saying, there are still many factors that dictate how much revenue we will get, because we are driven by how many pupils are in, how many butts are in seats, to be colloquial about it. Summer school enrollment, that data is reported on September 30th. Sue just told you about open enrollment. Students can move in and out. We initially, it's like the college portal, where families can identify multiple districts that they might go to based on where we are and different things that people might want to do with regards to hockey, swimming, or different gymnastics are oftentimes athletic sports that Prescott does not offer and can be found in neighboring districts. Initially, as Sue was saying, we projected a very high amount of about $1 million going out for open enrollment. That has since come down, but we won't have that final number till Friday. And then the third Friday count, we are expecting 21 fewer students. 21 fewer students is $250,000. So if you go back to those April projections, the $16,900,000, and then take away $250,000, you can see how this is now getting to a point of how revenue has walked back from what we had anticipated in April. So one of the things that Sue was kind of speaking to is that understanding that we have an unbalanced budget for the first time in 9 years. We do have a fund balance, and just kind of talking a little bit of fund balance is not cash on hand. So there's a couple things that we're talking about, and I want to be clear. We begin the year with $5.8 million in fund balance. We have cash reserves that allow us to pay. And so one of the school board policies is that we would have 4 months of staff pay. We currently, monthly, have staff salaries of $1.2 million. So our low end is no lower than $2 million, somewhere about $4.8 million. So we're about $1.8 million that is at our discretion. What we'll be asking for the board direction is whether or not, as we knew we could absorb some of this, but not for a long period of time, whether or not we will make every cut we can across the year. We have generated revenue that sometimes is unanticipated. But if you're wanting us to, between now and October, when you have to sign off on the final budget, if you want us to say, we will use fund balance, but we're not going to use $1 million, you can only use $750 or $500, Sue and I need to know that tonight to be able to start identifying big things. If we knew we'd be in this situation, we are going to be strategic and intentional about how we structure our future. then we have a little bit more time. But we wanted to make sure that we were meeting the expectations that the board had for October.
Can we jump in now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Anybody want to start here? Tanya or?
Yeah, I guess we all knew this was coming, and it's something that you have done a really good job of making sure we're aware of. I'm actually always impressed at the new analogies that you come up with every time, and this was great. It's from this article, which was great. And it's a concern. It's a concern, and that we don't want to cut our programming because we know what we're doing here works, but we're in a tough spot. I had questions. Fund 46, I know, is for capital projects. We did use a lot of that balance this year for some of our projects. We still have a little over, I think, $4 million in there, if I'm reading this correct. No.
No, and that's a really good
Okay.
clarification because it is a combination of
Yep.
46 and 49.
Okay,
So, but Sue, you could give an update on Fund 46.
yeah.
Right now, today,
Fund 46, just for people that don't know, is the capital maintenance fund, right? That's the
Right.
one that's
Right. Like the
specified for
savings.
facilities projects.
so we have budgeted to spend $400,000 out of that fund this year,
Okay,
paving the bus garage and energy efficiency lighting in, which school was it? High school? This school.
Yep, high school.
Is what's planned. It's what's in the budget right now. That will still leave a balance in there. I do not have anything budgeted to transfer to Fund 46 at this time, where normally we've been doing
yep.
25,000 or 100,000
So,
to prepare for those capital expenditures.
yeah.
Do you have any idea how much is left
Just
in there?
ballpark, like after the bus garage and all that, when we spend that, what is the ballpark? Just give or take.
Probably around 700,000.
Okay.
Interest rates are favorable right now, that's helping.
I guess one of my questions, that's a lot different than 4 million, but are we able to use some of that budget to help with like our maintenance kind of budget? So even if it's 200,000 or something like that, it was just kind of one of my wonderings there. We have a fund balance. We talk a lot, and we're very proud of our fund balance. I do think it's really appropriate to use our fund balance like this. I'd like to see that we use Fund 46 a little bit more. I feel more confident using Fund 46 than I would have 2 years ago because we have updated some of our biggest worries, right? Like some of the costs that we were really worried were going to just come to fruition, we've updated. So I feel a little bit more comfortable using some of that and using a combination of fund balance. I do think we have to look at everything, all kinds of numbers. If we're less 21 kids, where are they falling from? What do we need to do to tighten up all of those budgets? And I think that we could sustain this year. My concern is, right, like this is a 2-year projection. And so I really worry that we would not be able to take $2 million out of our fund balance, over the next 2 years. So I personally would rather this year we're looking at kind of that combination, Fund 46, fund balance. We're tightening things up as much as we can, and we're spending this year looking at what we might need to do for next year. So that's just my general thoughts.
Vicki?
Would the list that goes with the Fund 46 need to be updated?
It's pretty comprehensive, but we can review it and update it as needed.
Like the list of, what do you mean the list?
So you have to have remember on an annual basis, Mike Oika comes in April and says, here are the things that you sanction can be tapped into that trust fund.
Yep, okay.
And so,
It has to be on that list to
Right.
use Fund 46.
Okay.
so we can review that. Between now and October, what I'm hearing is Fund 46 cannot be used in any way, shape, or form for salaries and benefits,
Right.
right? And so we did shave facility and grounds we lowered their budget. We lowered it by about $50,000 to $60,000 because a lot of the infrastructure is being taken care of by the referendum. It is possible that if you're wanting us to look at, other than the paving of the garage and the LED lights, we do not have any proposed projects for that. So we could say, if anything came up that's on that list, it would go to Fund 46 versus
Reducing our other
Fund
budget.
10.
Yeah.
So it could save Fund 10, you know, so Sue and I can come back with a proposal of anywhere from 50 to 100,000. As I told our admin team who are working on many different things at the site level and curriculum-wise, we're looking for elephants, not mosquitoes, right? We have to find large chunks of money to rein this in.
So yeah, I like that idea. If there is something pops up, like we know we had a refrigeration issue that hit us before school started. Yeah, I think those types of things that pop up, if we cannot take that out of Mike's regular budget, if we can tap in to Fund 46 for that, because we ended up having more in there when we decided to do the bus garage, paving over there. We had more in there than we thought we'd have, which is great because of interest. So there's a little extra there to tap into. The Fund 49 I remember talking about this before. We had, most schools do like a 3-month salary, where our board has decided to do 4 months of expenditures save, correct? Did you guys used to have a 3, or did you always have a 4?
That's the high end.
Okay,
So it's a
got
range. yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So you have kind of a three-legged stool. We say it can, our fund balance has to be above 2 million.
Yep,
It has to cover 3 to 4 months of salaries and, avoid short-term borrowing. So we haven't had to do that in a number of years.
oh, and that was my next
Yeah,
question. So we do have short-term borrowing set up, which we haven't had to use, but we would only use that when we exhaust 49.
You can use it for 49. We may have to use it this year to pay
Well,
salaries.
that's what I was asking. I'm wondering, then we get to that end of the year where we have that gap before we get our
Yeah, we
check
have
from the
two
state.
low points in the year with cash.
Right.
And one of
So,
them's around January 1st and the other one's late in the spring.
Is
or
late.
Early summer.
okay, okay. So we still do have that as an option. You haven't had to do it for,
Not since I've.
well,
been
since I've been here, actually, on the
Yeah,
board, so.
we haven't had to, we've always had that, it basically, to
Safety
simplify
net.
it's a line of credit.
Yep.
It's a little more technical than that,
Right.
but we haven't had to use it, but it's a safety net.
Okay,
This time, it's likely to be triggered.
okay.
I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was paperwork of signatures did you get the signatures for
Oh.
First National Bank?
The line of credit's next month.
Okay, so that'll be coming in
That's
October.
coming, okay.
Yep, all right.
Okay. All right, so we have safety nets, we're gonna work on it. We think this year should be okay. Next year's gonna be the head scratcher. Unless we get increase in funding.
Well, and I'm glad you asked that. So the biennium budget has been approved.
Yeah.
So there is no new funding.
Unless they were to do something similar to what they did, correct, during COVID, a short-term
Right.
Yeah, I don't,
fix for
yeah.
schools, a one-time
I haven't
payment.
seen any, I guess, ray of hope at the state legislature that they would go back. Once they set the 2 years, it's usually in place. It's unfortunate. I know that I have not heard. I know that there was a special session called today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that moved the needle in any way. The saddest part, I think, for us is we also know that mental health got cut, and it's
Yeah.
differentially, people might not think that's a big deal, but for Prescott, we lost over $65,000.
Yeah.
For larger districts, it didn't hit them because it was metered out at $31 per student. So Prescott, we lost our floor.
Yeah.
It's where Hudson River Falls ended up maybe with a little bit more money because it used to be just block grants. We also unfortunately heard troubling news that the early college career prep program where you get reimbursed, they cut the amount of money in the pool for the whole state by 50%. And so that's going to put a hit on Prescott Public Schools on some of the advanced courses that we usually bring to you to be able to, because some of that cost is covered and no longer will be covered. So unfortunately, two areas that you're trying to elevate students and opportunities and also mental health were also kind of clipped. My recommendation is I know that this is kind of, we have another meeting next week where we get to talk and hear back from our community. We have to finalize the budget in October. I would highly recommend that we identify a date for a work session. We can either do that through Google or Doodle Meets, but I do think that this is going to be an intense drill down to be able to kind of identify how we're going to prioritize the areas so that we can be intentional and thoughtful who we need to include in the process and what are things that are going to be considered.
Helen, did you have anything?
No, I think everyone pretty much said everything. I think what we're seeing is what every district is seeing. And a lot of them are going for operational cost to the community, so I understand that. I guess, so just so I'm clear, so the next meeting, we'll talk more about this, correct?
The next meeting is kind of
Or is it
like
just
a weird meeting,
Okay.
if you will. It's not really a board meeting.
It's the annual budget that is run by the community.
We don't.
Okay.
But
And
we'll have to probably, as Rick thought, we'll probably do a workshop on this one.
Perfect, okay. I think, I think a workshop would help me, because it's my first go at it. And it would be nice to drill down into where the cuts are gonna happen, and how that will affect the bottom line, which the bottom line is our students and our staff. And if we cut too much, will we go down in students? You know, that's where that kind of, people leave the district for a reason, and they come into the district for a reason. And so we don't want to cut what they're coming in for. So to have those kind of, talk about that,
Mackenzie, anything to add on this one?
You know,
Fun stuff?
I don't think so.
No, it's not.
No.
I just got a couple of comments here. So just to kind of wrap this up, Rick, our spending has been pretty flat. Actually, it's dropped a little bit, our expenditures. And our revenue has dropped immensely, like 1.3 over the 2 years, 1.1 since last year. That's because we lost federal dollars from COVID when the state didn't give us anything because we got those federal dollars, right? I mean, we got money from the federal government. State government says, well, you got money from the federal government. We don't need any money from us because, you know, you're getting, so that was their answer. So we're basically getting 0% from not just 2 years. I mean, it's been more than 2 years. Right? I mean, if you really want to boil it down, I'm bringing this up because this is going to come up in public circles. Our district is financially run as good as any district you could ask for. The state is pushing these issues down to the local taxpayers, down to the community themselves. And it's going to be on us as a district. Yes, we're going to look to tighten the belt buckle this year. Luckily for us, we've saved a ton of money to handle situations just like this one where we can absorb a big cut like this for a short period of time, a year. I don't even know if it's going to be 2 years. That's what we're going to have to figure out. But we think we can get through this year because of the great job we did saving up for it if and when it were to happen. But that's short term. We got to come up with a long-term plan because this ain't going to last. And it's basically going to be either we have to figure out how we're going to reduce our budget more to fit, which is going to involve cutting programs and probably staff, or other options are to get more revenue. And that's, like I said, it's the state is pushing on the local taxpayers, and they're the ones that are going to have to make decisions for us as well, if it comes to that. And that's what we got to figure out here quickly, I think a work session soon is going to be needed if we're going to want to get our ducks in a row for next year.
And
I'm not saying this is, we can't wait till next year to figure this out. It's got to happen soon.
Yeah. And Rick, when you brought up a work session, are you wanting a work session before the October budget? And then, because I'm thinking this is additional work sessions after that, looking at the following year?
Yeah, but
Or
I
is
think,
it-
yeah, I think,
Okay.
well, because you must approve the
Yep.
formal budget in October.
Right.
I think you need.
A work session before that, yeah.
Like a data dig prior to that meeting.
I agree.
The couple options you might have is also, it has to be approved no later than, I think, October 30th, so it's the end of the month, is whether or not you make the third, we will have more data the first week of October that will be substantive, meaning we can have turned it around and give you better information. So we really can't do anything till the first week of October. If you wanted to, again, use the third Wednesday as your data dig and then have a formal special meeting to adopt the budget, you could do that as well. I think that we're just going to, I know you all work, you have another job, and so it's not easy to find a time to be able to do this, but obviously it's essential. So, and I know that we probably can't do it by calendar right now,
Right,
but
yeah. But if we sent out dates, it's soon, I mean, the soonest ones in October, I think, because you guys also have to then go back and manipulate the budget with the ideas and stuff,
Right.
so.
And we actually have to have it certified, signed, and notarized, and in the township's hands by, is the 31st of Friday, I hope? Whatever the Friday
Yeah.
is. So we need turnaround time a little bit. I mean,
Yep.
to have it all approved and
Yep.
notarized and,
yeah, it's a Tuesday.
okay. So 31st is a good day.
So I just want to finish my thought here. While we got people in the audience that are very passionate about Prescott schools, we just passed a referendum for $15 million to fix up our facilities that we are extremely grateful and lucky that we got passed when we did, because we're in a better situation with our buildings now than we've ever been. And that really sets us up, to kind of manage those buildings in a responsible way. People are going to wonder why we're in such trouble here. And I think it's really important that people are educated and they understand what is going on at the state level that's impacting us so bad. And it's happening everywhere. And I think it would be really good, Rick, to make sure that we get some surrounding district information on what they're dealing with as well. Central did a really good job. St. Croix Central did a good job. They passed an operating levy, I think, when we passed our referendum, right? Now they're going to be going back for a facility. So they're going back for a facilities referendum. There's a lot of things going on around us that people need to be aware of, and it's information that people should know.
There was two good articles.
And we could use your guys' help. I bring it up because we need help within the community to spread that message to people, because we need everybody informed on why this is so critical.
Yeah. Barry Kane from Ellsworth had an article, I think on the 8th. There's an article I wrote. There's two opinions, one from a previous teacher from the Prescott area that lives here, that's in the Pierce County Journal. There's a individual from River Falls that wrote a very nice opinion piece outlining some of the challenges. I know that Jamie Benson just sent out something to their community, and currently Ellsworth is using school perceptions as they're looking at identifying some areas for referendum. So I think you've identified that it really has been pushed back from the state level to local communities. Whether or not people have been aware of that, it's just gotten to a point where it's kind of, there's no other option in the next 2 years other than this list are just some of the things to make sure that people knew that every single district and site level made cuts. We have cut supply budgets and materials by 6% at every school. We're going to delay the bus purchase to fiscal year 2025. We're managing kind of the facility and grounds through Fund 46, and you just kind of asked us maybe even to go a little bit further. We've invested in LED lights at the high school here to reduce some of our utility costs. Sue and I will be coming to you. Late last year, we were going to try to prepay another bond. It saves taxpayers future costs, and we just there were too many things going on in April, but we would like to come back and move that forward. Obviously, non-essential travel are things that we will take a look at, and the last two are really at a board level of trying to review by grade sections to examine for efficiencies. And then if our community is supportive of our staff and the programs and the production we've had, then we may need to ask them to help sustain those programs, the production, and our staff that we care so much about.
Thanks, Sue. I know it's hard to stand up there and give us the bad news. So we'll move on. Item B is discuss middle school athletics administrative proposal to move middle school athletics under PCR for budgetary and organizational oversight.
Yeah, so we've been looking at this for a couple years, and now I think the timing is right. This would not impact how middle school athletics operates in any way, shape, or form in the Prescott Public Schools. Currently, we do allow homeschool students as well as St. Joe's students to participate. One of the first questions on frequently asked questions is, can middle school athletics be operated under community ed or PCR under Fund 80? It's basically what I'm talking about. And that question is clear as long as you allow students who go beyond just being enrolled in your schools, which we currently do. What this would allow is that we would save $50,000 out of Fund 10. PCR currently has a fund balance, and students register, so there are fees. This would allow basically PCR middle school athletics to be self-funding and to continue to operate. It would have no difference. The oversight would continue to be through our activities director, Andrew Caudill. The same fields, the same events and things like that would occur. It just would provide relief to Fund 10. Also, as you know, you are allowed to levy for Fund 81 and 82. So right now, we don't see any necessary changes there, but if for some reason costs go up for referees and costs go up for coaches, you could always do that because it's outside of the levy cap. This is something that we believe would be in the best interest, both for just our own financial records, and it also is aligned with how we currently operate. And if you were interested in that, that would be part of what we would shift for the October proposal.
Anybody want to? Helen, do you got any questions about this one?
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't know how it would save us $50,000. I guess I'm like, I'm a little confused. So there's a lot of funds happening here. I'm new.
Yeah.
I get to play that for a year. So how does it save the $50,000 by transferring it or moving it, I don't want to use the right words, to PCR away from under the school?
So Fund 10 is how it's currently operating. That's our general budget. It covers all the costs for referees, for field maintenance, for field paint, for uniforms, for coaches' pay, and transportation. If it goes to PCR, PCR is its own segregated bucket.
Sure.
It would fees in, fees out. It would be basically, we would charge for what the true cost of that program is. We currently have a fund balance in PCR, and you also can levy outside of the levy cap. The levy cap is on operations and Fund 10. If for some reason we needed to have more money to operate the programs that we do, you can levy for that on a separate levy, just to make sure
Without
that those
approval,
programs
like
run. right.
Without going to the community for approval.
So that would bring me to my next question, because I just heard you. So now we're saying if we move it out, you can charge like what basically it costs to run, which will raise prices for families and students?
We're
or
not
would it-
planning to change the fees at all
Okay.
at this time.
Okay.
We don't have any, we would keep, everything would be the same because we believe the first couple of years, we have enough funds, basically that from fees and from how PCR currently has in its budget to be able to pull this off. And as it goes forward, if costs for referees, uniforms and things like that got more expensive, you would have the opportunity to get that through a levy.
Which is
It doesn't really
which is
save
voting, right?
50,000, it just moves 50, it
Voting.
just moves the
It
money.
saves 50,000 from Fund 10, I guess I
Right.
should say it
And
that
this
way.
is
Yeah.
just PCR, not
Yep.
P.
This is middle school athletics.
Middle
School
school
athletics.
would go to PCR. Okay.
In my working with the PCR board, my understanding is like, some of the sports we like break even with, some of the sports we end up having a little bit of extra with, and that goes for like equipment or something like that. And so my guess is we're gonna tighten up on kind of some of that, where we might spend some of that extra, and really that we might have our families kind of not feel the pain, right? Like, so it'll help offset the cost for that sport. Is that kind of what the thought is there?
I think that can be a better question
Yeah.
on item C.
Okay.
Okay. And then coaches would, because coaches get
So the
paid too, right?
extracurricular that's in the handbook, instead of having it come out of Fund 10,
It would come
it
out
would
of
come out
Fund
of Fund 80.
But it would still say the same amount.
Exactly.
at this point.
Yep, no change to what coaches are paid. And if you made adjustments, it just wouldn't come out of Fund 10, it would be coming out of PCR.
And do middle school sports do WIAA at all? Like, do they follow under WIAA?
No, we're not
Okay.
a WIA member
Okay.
for middle school, but we do follow a similar procedure, so parents are just aware how it works.
Okay.
And is that due to St. Joe's and homeschool kids being allowed to be in, or?
There's no reason.
Just
Press
'cause?
conference,
Okay.
Elster's the only one that's doing it, and now they're wondering why.
Oh.
Everyone else does.
Yeah.
So,
There we go.
there's just no reason for us
Okay.
to do it.
For middle school, no. Okay.
So I just wanted to repeat that for the mic here, but what my question was, does middle school sports follow WIAA at all, our governing body for athletics at the high school? And the answer was no, they don't. They're separate. We try to align, so it probably helps us transition and stuff like that, but it won't impact the governing body at all.
Yeah, any other questions?
Nope.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. I mean, we've been talking about it for years, to move it over, just with the simple fact that we can levy, if we need it.
Would this create more work for the PCR director?
Not necessarily, because currently it's under, Andrew oversees PCR, Andrew already oversees middle school
Yeah.
athletics, so it basically
Nothing
is-
changes
Okay.
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mackenzie, anything?
Basically, I think from a parent and an athlete and a fan, it'll be no difference. It really is an accounting
Yeah.
adjustment to provide a relief valve for Fund 10.
Yep.
Kind of your home checking account
Does
versus your.
does this come back for approval to us, or does this
Well,
just
if you're
happen?
giving us direction, because this
Yeah.
does take a lot of, Sue will, if she stayed, there are 26 different, it's called a woofer code, but there are these basically hieroglyphics that get attached to every object and code. We have to start to rewire
to
all of this so that when you pay a coach,
Yeah.
it's coming out of this account. So if you're giving us direction that this would be a way that you're willing for us to go, we would start to build and adjust our budget that you would be approving in October based on that.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're.
And there's a lot of gear
Yeah,
shifting to
So
do
we're,
that.
think-
yeah, we're good with that.
If it's something you can get started on now, for sure.
One more question. So, like, high school, I don't know if this is the same, this is for you. High school, if you're in certain sports, it's like, if a family's in this many, or if an individual's in this many sports, and then it goes to family, it's capped, right? Does that count
That's
for middle
down
school as
below.
well?
That's the next agenda item on here,
Yeah.
right?
But would this include, like, if we
Well,
took?
that's what we'll talk about.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I jumped the gun.
No,
transition.
No. Basically, I just wanted to make sure that you're thinking ahead. It's the perfect segue, so I'm glad that we booked them this way, but.
I'm nervous because we're moving on, and
Yeah.
usually we have to
Yeah.
pass stuff to move on. It's nervous.
Yeah, so
this
what
is
we
just
wanted to make sure is that you
I know.
understood, it's just basically, it's an accounting function. It takes the load off of Fund 10, which is showing the $1 million deficit.
Sure.
It doesn't like, Mike, good clarification, it's not like we're $50,000 is magically going away. It's just being
Shift.
taken out of another segregated account
Okay.
that has more flexibility.
Exactly.
And it meets the letter of the law, and it meets how Prescott has functioned, meaning that we do allow St. Joe's and homeschool students to participate. This now just puts it under that category.
I bet you a lot of other schools do it too.
Yeah. And it's based on, and it literally is the number one frequently asked question on can middle school athletics be moved to Fund 81? And we said, if that's true, let's bring it forward.
So that might save us $50,000, and I just did the math with a calculator. So I feel bad about that. But we only need to find 22 more things like that to get us this year. So
All right.
All right. Well, we'll start a
22.
countdown board.
Good job, all right. We're moving on. Item C.
All right. So this one is new. It was presented to you as a letter. I'll put up the letter, and I think you were going to describe it. And it might take me a second to find the letter because I don't think I hyperlinked it, but I'll see. Oh, I did. Every once in a while.
So to piggyback on the last conversation, our intention is not to change how middle school fees are done. It just would go into a different bucket and then come out of a different bucket. So this discussion, while in the agenda, it lined up well. It's not necessarily tied as of right now. So looking at our fee structure currently, how our fees work is for competitive activities and athletics at the high school level, it's $110. At the middle school level, it's $70. For maximums, we have two maximums. We have a student maximum of $220 and a family maximum of $425. The discussion is it worth eliminating the student maximum to look at equity between families? And I gave you an example just so you can see how this would play out. Family A has one student that participates in 5 activities, $550 of fees. The student maximum kicks in, $220 paid, 40% of the fees paid. Family B has 2 students. Student 1 does 2 activities, student 2 does 3 activities, generates the same total fees of $550, but the family maximum is then what's triggered for $425, which is 77% of the total fee. So exact same number of activities, exact same number of total fees. However, the way our system is set up, the first family didn't have to pay as much because they only had 1 kid, and the second family had 2, so therefore it didn't trigger the same maximum. So by eliminating the student maximum in this scenario, both families would pay the exact same amount for activity fees. We do honor free and reduced lunch. We encourage families to submit paperwork for free and reduced lunch. If a family's on reduced lunch, all the fees are 50%. Free lunch is 100%. And that is calculated in Infinite Campus. And Infinite Campus does honor the maximum that's built in. So the discussion is this worth looking at going forward? For that equity piece, it obviously is something that we've talked about long before our budget situation, but it's something that we're bringing up now. And then the second question, if we do want to go forward, do you start it this academic year as we're just starting and no one is hitting maximums yet? Or do you say we've already started the school year, we have to wait till the next school year? And so the second chart just shows if we were to limit the student maximum, in the same scenario, both families, if there was no free and reduced lunch incorporated, would pay the exact same amount because every family would operate under the same maximum. So that was a lot of information. Hopefully that makes sense. I was hoping that the diagram or the chart or examples would help articulate certain situations that we may see, and is that the best choice for us, and then decide if it is, then we stick with it. If not, then there's an option to change it. So that's kind of a quick rundown. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions? Anybody got any questions, any comments?
So basically, we're getting rid, the idea is no individual fee.
Max.
Max, just stick with the family. So like, in the end, family A is gonna pay more than they, like double almost.
Correct.
for
But
what
family
they are.
B wouldn't.
Yeah. And family B would pay a little less, yeah,
Would pay the same amount. Yeah.
you're right. They'd be, yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess, is there any concerns about it? I mean,
Well,
I know
my-
it's
I'm good with, I look at percentages, I think is the better way to handle. I mean, for me, that's when I look at things, that's what I'm looking at is percentage, because everybody may have a different amount they're paying, and then something goes up, insurance, for example. But when you look at what a total is, and then what the percentage increase was, like, that total number is, on your increase is gonna be different, but the percentage may still be the same. So, for me,
If they-
percentages is for fairness, for me, for equity purposes. The school year started, I don't really like the idea of saying, yep, nope, now we're changing it. I think we say we're gonna change something like this, and it institutes next year. I don't like the midstream, this is what families have been operating under. Give them that time to work that into their family budgets and know that this is where they're at coming next year, not next week.
And family maximums do incorporate, if they have kids in the high school and the middle school doing athletics and activities, IC does keep track of the total family. So it's not just, the example shows high school students, but if they had middle school students, the maximum for that family would incorporate everyone that they have in their household.
So I mean, we probably, for the most part, you're looking at family max, probably not as many individual.
Yeah, we don't have a ton. There's some that do hit the individual max. What you'll see are families that have one student that do, 3 sports and an activity, they'll hit that maximum. And then basically everything after that is not, there's no fee paid. And so the fees are really collected from other families to help kind of cancel that out. So in this proposal, we're not talking about increasing our individual fees as they currently stand. And the family maximum currently is $425. That's not in the discussion. I mean, it can be if you think it should be, but we're not looking to recommend any changes to the individual fees or the family maximum.
And to boil it down, really what it is saying, we would do away with individual.
Yep.
And we would just have family maximums. Is that something that seems reasonable, I guess? And Andrew, did you even run it by the advisory board, or did you want to start here and then go at advisory?
Yeah, so I ran it by them, and there wasn't a ton of feedback on it. It's a small group, small percentage, kids involved. Some of them have one student, so they do have the student maximum kick in, and there didn't seem to be a lot of concern initially about what this would do in their individual situation. A lot of families do hit the family max. They frankly aren't going to see anything change because that's the max that they hit.
I would be curious, as we talk about this more, to know, does this increase our revenue overall within our activities budget? Stay the same, decrease, whatever? And then I would be curious to know how many typical families do we have in bucket A versus bucket B?
Yeah,
I like equity, like I like the idea of that, and I'm wondering, though, a little bit deeper on.
Yeah, it would increase it by how much, I don't really know. Something we can look at this year, especially if you're interested in talking about but not interested in it going in place this school year. We can collect data this school year to kind of determine how did it impact this school year if we didn't have it, how much would be generated, how many families are impacted versus not impacted, and then we can always bring that back towards the end of the year.
I agree with Vicki. I'd rather have this of a conversation next year, knowing that families are already invested in some cases, 1, 2, between activities and athletics, so.
No, I agree. I think, yeah.
Mackenzie, anything?
No, I also agree.
It is interesting now, though, we're pushing middle school into Fund 80, so I'd be curious to know the numbers. You don't have to get into it now, but there's some more information that would be helpful to how that gets dispersed.
Yeah, so in the current process, the maximums only are coming about with athletics and the competitive activities in the high school and the middle school, not PCR. And so in moving middle school athletics to PCR, the intent would to just keep everything the same. And that can be discussed as well. If we should.
When we hit the max, I'm just curious, like, how do you have, anyways.
No, it's an important, I think, I want to make sure, at this point, these numbers are based on, and failing maxes are based on things that are excluded, do not include PCR. So if we want the family max to include PCR, we would have to talk about with middle school athletics moving into PCR. We would have to build a structure to maintain, if you want that not to be separated out from the family max.
So what we're basically saying is, with the move, if we move middle school athletics to PCR, they don't count against the max.
At this time, we don't PCR operates, all those fees are not.
So that's an increase.
So that is an important thing if you want that to sustain.
I'm glad we talked about that.
Does PCR have a max, a family max?
I do not believe so. I can check. I do not think they do.
I feel like I pay
They
a lot.
honor free and reduced lunch.
But I mean, that could be part of the conversation is, should PCR have a family max, especially now that they're absorbing middle school?
They do honor free and reduced lunch. So that is incorporated.
The 20 fall ball tournaments you guys do doesn't count as PCR fees.
They don't. That's on top of PCR fees.
All right. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay.
Thanks.
No, it'd be hard.
We're going to go to item D, reminder of the annual meeting.
Yes, this is probably just second to Prescott Days, one of the most exciting opportunities for our community to come together.
For you,
Well, we have.
I wanted to be at the street dance, but my daughter got married that night. So, but I do want to share is that next Wednesday in this room, it is the Prescott High School Library or Media Center at 6 p.m. It is our annual meeting of the electorate. The agenda was published in the Pierce County Journal and is also on the website, I believe. I'm getting nods from both Courtney and Maria, so thank you. Basically, just a reminder, it is not an official board meeting. It is a meeting run by the electorate. There is a call to order by the board chair. There is the Pledge of Allegiance, then the electorate decides who they elect to chair the meeting. Then there'll be 2 reports. We'll give an update with regards to the referendum, basically a thank you to our community for the investment of the $15 million. Know that we are only 50% of the work in, right? So summer 2024 is going to be a huge undertaking, as it was this year. Luckily, most of it will be on the roofs, and most of it will be with HVAC. But just wanted to make sure that people knew that there's still a lot of work to go, and the board will be updated on that. And then share out on Vision 2035, just getting understanding from the community about what we're trying to do. And obviously, our current reality is fragile, and we want to be able to say, how do we exist currently, but what do we really want to be by 2035? And so those will be 5 to 10 minute presentations, and then we get to the budget hearing. That'll be run by our finance director, Sue Gertis. And then there are 4 resolutions adopting the tax levy.
the salaries of the board members, reimbursement of the board members' expenses, and then to set the next annual board, annual meeting for the 24-25 school year.
All right. I can't wait. It's circled on my calendar for 365 days, 4 days. All right, item E, return to learn.
Yes, I just wanted to let everybody know and thank everybody. Sarah Dusick has turned in the numbers. It does look like that we increased enrollment for full-time enrollment by about 3 students. That obviously gives us about another, it is calculated into the 21 already. So, but it generated another $33,000 towards funding for the school, so it does matter. But there also were excellent activities that were represented in the videos earlier, and the relationships and being able just to get our staff and students in 2 buildings that had never, students hadn't been in, I think was very helpful for making a smooth start to the beginning of the school year. So that is the Return to Learn update.
All right. Anything else? We'll move on to recognition of visitors. Anybody care to be recognized? Nobody?
Yes.
Yep, okay. You didn't stick around here the whole time to not.
Well, we just want to say thank you. And we also want, that we're hopeful that we'll be part of the work moving forward, and thank you for listening.
Lori Pedretti. It's still Miss Pedretti. She was my teacher, I'm almost 50 years old too, by the way, so. All right, we're gonna move on. We need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming.